How'd they get there? Well, this is an interesting story, actually. In the beginning, it was patronage. These jobs were handed out for political reasons. If you knew somebody, you probably didn't know, say, the president, but you might know somebody who worked in your state party who had worked to get that president elected. And he was given so many jobs he could hand out, and he handed one out to you because you went around and knocked on doors and hung up signs and things like that. But in the after the Civil War, one of the huge political fights in this country, maybe the biggest issue of the day in say 1880, was should we reform the civil service? Should we change how you get those jobs? And the argument was that it should be based on merit. And a test was constructed. This is during the presidencies of Garfield and Chester Arthur. And this was called the Pendleton Civil Service Act. And nowadays you go and you take a test that measures your aptitude, your ability, and then that test plays a major role in determining whether you can get the job. And it's nonpartisan, and these are not political appointees. The person working at the Social Security Administration helping your grandmother get her check is not a political appointee. He's a civil servant, as we call him, and stays there regardless of who wins election. The goal is to find people based on talent and skill, not their politics, or not their willingness to help politicians. The Hatch Act is a law that actually prohibits government employees from active participation in partisan politics. So if I'm a civil servant, if I'm working in the bureaucracy, I am not supposed to be directly involved in partisan politics. So the whole idea is that the bureaucrats themselves are not only not political appointees, they're supposed to be completely non-political, because we don't want to create the impression of a government that is only willing to help a certain group of people based on their political ideology. The Office of Personnel Management, the federal office in charge of most of the government's hiring, is where you would go to get these jobs. The general schedule is a schedule for federal employees that rank you from 1 to 18, GS1 to GS18, which determines your salary. Remember, I mentioned it's a hierarchy. When you get hired, you would be hired as a GS1. If you're, say, the Secretary of Defense, you would be a GS18. This is similar to the military. Anybody who's familiar with the military knows that you have a rank, and that rank determines your pay. So you might be an E1, E2, E3. This is the same way. So everybody who works for the government, well, with a few exceptions, I don't think the president is on this schedule, or Congress, but most people who work for the bureaucracy are designated as some number, 1 through 18, and that determines their level of pay and their benefits and that sort of thing, which includes, as I mentioned, the military. It's the same setup there. An elite cadre of about 9,000 federal government managers make the senior executive service. And these are career officials, and these populate the highest levels. These are the most powerful people within these bureaucracies. The other route to a federal job is recruiting from the Plum Book. This lists the very top jobs available, and these are handed out by presidential appointment. And the president's job is to find capable people to fill these positions. Some of them are patronage. Ambassadorships, for example, are patronage. Or sometimes maybe if you're a senator or a congressman or governor or something, and you really campaigned hard for the president, or you are a popular rival, the president may give you a job for political reasons. You think of Barack Obama making Hillary Clinton Secretary of State. I think it's largely agreed that has proved to be an appointment of a capable person to the job. She's generally considered to have done a good job. But it was also a political appointment. She was a popular rival, and he wanted to give her a high-profile position in his cabinet. So some of these jobs still do come down to politics. But that's just very few at the absolute highest levels. Their most important trait is transience. They shift. They move in and out. For example, as Obama's first term ends as I'm recording this video, most members of the cabinet are talking about leaving and being replaced by someone else. Now this is important because the people at top change so often. Rarely do they last, say, more than one presidential term. What really goes on is the people who were there for a long period of time, the civil servants who may be there for decades, really do the most to shape the bureaucracy that they're working in.